Hello, hello. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. Abel Pacheco here, your host for the Five Talents Podcast. We're super excited today. We have an amazing guest, probably one that needs no introduction, but we're going to introduce him anyways. Mr. Matt Faircloth. How's it going, brother?
I'm great, Abel. Thank you so much for having me here, brother.
Man, you're blessing our audience already in advance. Let me let you know, if you don't have a pen and a piece of paper out, you need to get one. He's going to drop more than a few nuggets, and then afterwards you're going to want to go connect. Do so. He's an amazing guest. So Matt, let me introduce you. And yeah, absolutely. Let me give you a couple of bullets about Matt if you don't know. So he is, one of those individuals that it's just all the way around. Multifamily owner, capital raiser, YouTube educator. It's got a great amount of assets, recorded assets for us to learn from. Amazon author, bestseller, raising private capital. The guy is amazing when it comes to branding, raising money, finding millions of dollars in a personal network. And he does a lot of this stuff, with a heart or a mind to give back and to help others, which is what is like, what I was drawn to. And I originally found Matt through one of my partners, and they've kind of worked together or, are related in the successful multifamily ring. And I learned a little bit more about him, heard him on a few podcasts, and I go, man, who's this Matt? He's just a crazy big dog. I need to have him on the show. And I started learning more. So anyways, Matt, thank you so much, man. Why don't you give us a proper introduction? Tell us more about yourself, what you're doing, and we'll talk about what you're doing today. And
thank you. We could just call me the crazy big dog. That you already said that. That's what. Yeah, but no. At the end of the day, thank you very much. I'm actually much more humble than you put out there. But thank you. Yeah. And I'm grateful for the successes and for what I've been able to do for others as well. So that's what I would say, is that I am a very grateful, humble, down to earth real estate guy that's been doing this for 15 years, and I've just luckily decided to start putting my journey as a real estate investor on YouTube about 5 years ago. And it's been a phenomenal journey in the attention that's got us as a company. But also in the I guess the relief that I get to kind of talk about all things real estate there, things I'm passionate about, but also get to help others. And that has springboarded us to blessed us really with the growth to have investors that believe in us, that have allowed us to take on larger deals, attract partners that can help us manage those larger deals, and that. So we've scaled out into larger space and grown quite a bit as a company over the last 3 to 4 years because of all that. And that's taken us from, a couple hundred doors and some successes just over 1,000 now. And we're super excited, and we feel like we're just starting to get to the next. We're just starting to grow, for what we want to grow, where we want to head to as a company.
Yeah, absolutely. The couple hundred doors was I call it maybe the hard way too, right? Those are not what do you call it? One apartment complex that's 200 doors. It's the hard way, single family, one at a time.
I scaled small, man. I scaled small. My first, a lot of deals were single family, small multi, duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, stuff like that. Those were our rentals for many, many years. And we've only scaled out of that about 5 years ago. We scaled slow too. And I'm not one, and there's nothing wrong with this. I've got a very extremely successful real estate friend that his first investment was a 92 unit apartment building with investors, with the whole, properly syndicated deal, but that was his first big acquisition. For us, we just built up and up and up, and I bought a 10 unit, and then I bought an 18 unit, then I bought a 49 unit, then I bought, so we scaled through smaller real estate, and just when it made sense, we scaled up and all that, and just organically grew, managed a lot of it ourselves.
Yeah.
Just gave up management a couple of years ago. And so we did a lot of the doing. I mean, I've collected rents myself. I've shown apartments. I've gone toe to toe with building inspectors and everything. I've done it all. And I've never been, kind of hands off over here, passive. I've been in this thick of it myself for a lot of the first 10 years of our business.
Yeah. And that, in the thick of it, that's what you were documenting your journey along the
Yes.
way, right? And a lot of anybody that's listening that's deep into bigger pockets, right? You are you have a lot of individuals there, YouTube there. Where all the different platforms that you're giving back to?
Well, I find that we all need to pick one or two media outlets we're going to contribute to, just from a time perspective, because there's only but so many hours in the day. And if you decide you want to spend all your time cranking out everything you got to social media, then you're going to be, I mean, you could repackage what you got. I mean, I take a YouTube video, and to answer your question, I'm on YouTube and Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
But then I take a YouTube video and I'll spin it to Facebook, and put it on Facebook and everything like that. But I can tell you that we don't spend our time on all, because I think that you end up kind of getting diluted and becoming the jack of all trades and the master of none. If you try and, really broadcast yourself heavily in all the media channels. And unless you're just taking content you have and respinning it, and then just taking the same content and putting it on other channels, that's not really, being a master of all the channels. That's really just taking a thing you made in one place and
Sending it out. Yeah.
that's just respinning it, which we do that too, but that's not, I don't think that's really owning a space.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a ton of followers that are very grateful to have all of the knowledge, all of the education, everything you've done to give back. What, before we kind of get into too much real estate, because I want to get into more of it. What was it that said, you know what, I want to give back? What's your motivation? Why? And, I'd love to hear that for you.
My why for YouTube, or my why?
Why for education, and why for giving back?
Oh, because my mantra for my company is to transform lives through real estate. I want to make money. I love money. It's a great vehicle to help me live the life I want. But I want to make a difference in people's lives. I want to make an impact. I want to leave a footprint here. I don't want to just be a ghost through life. I want to make a splash and make a difference and help people and aid people and say, hey, that Matt really, made an impact or helped me get some. You and I have had conversations offline about things, and I try and offer my opinion, offer support and services as best I can. And YouTube is a great way to allow me to do that, to at least offer my thoughts. And y'all can believe me, on my YouTube, every YouTube video I create, there's normally at least one person that's like, I don't agree with what you're saying, Matt. Awesome. Thank you. I don't think that I'm the end all be all. I'm just offering up my opinion. And if my opinion helps you, great. If my opinion does not help you, then that's okay too. Sorry, man. I have a new computer, and it's pinging me a lot now, and I don't know how to. I got to turn off all these push notifications that are happening. I'm sorry.
We don't mind. None of us mind. We're
it's the crazy world we live in with lots of things pushing. Anyway, I just want to put my thoughts out there, and if they help people, great. That's why. But it really goes back to transforming lives through real estate.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have been changed from your content. So, I mean, their directions, their lives, their motivations, and when you started, or from your background, I know you went from a Fortune 500 company, and you were an engineer, you were, secure job, making some good money, I'm sure. And then you kind of left that, what feels like a sense of security, so to speak, to kind of this, a new sense of like, wow, I'm not sure where I'm going to land. But then, obviously you created a platform to live the life the way you want to, and give back the way you want to. And that's just, it's amazing, man. Congratulations.
No, it is. Yeah. I'm lucky enough that I've got a good woman at my side. And that who is able to really be to be the support and the other half of my everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she agreed to be the breadwinner for us for Team Faircloth,
Yeah. So she was
um
your biggest investor in the beginning, it sounds
she
like.
was, yeah, yeah. And for those that are listening right now that want to exit their day job, there's only a few ways you can do it. Making a passive that your passive exceeds your expenses and you're out, like the Robert Kiyosaki cash flow board
Hmm.
game, right? We've all
Hmm.
played it. Okay. Good night, man. I'm so sorry. Just give me a second. Um, uh, okay, there
We
we
all
go.
have
All right.
phones that go bzz
I
and
just turned it
ping, and
off.
we, no,
That shouldn't happen anymore.
no, you're good. You're
And all
good.
that. So anyway, okay. The I'm sorry, brother. Give me the question again.
Yeah,
I
you're
got
totally
you.
okay,
I
Matt. You're
got this.
totally
Oh,
okay.
my wife.
It
Okay.
was your biggest investor when we first started, and
Yes. And I
that
was going
being
to give
her.
a
So
few tips for those that are wanting to quit their job. You can make it a passive that your passive can exceed your expenses, a la the Robert Kiyosaki cash flow board game, or
correct.
you can get a profession in the real estate space that allows, like David Green. You know,
I don't know his story. I'm David
oh
Green,
yeah, he's
the
the number,
other,
right?
yeah, the second
So
guy for bigger pockets, right
correct.
behind
Now,
Beard.
first of
But
all, first he was a cop.
hmm.
That was his profession, was a
Hmm.
police officer, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then he stepped from there into a realtor, and he became a real estate, like, and sold rental properties
Yeah.
and whatnot, while he also had some investment going on his side. That's exit number two: is get yourself a profession in the space that
Yes.
you can be around rental properties, grow your real estate business while also making enough to meet your nut,
Yep. Yep.
and everything like that. So that's number two. The third way you can do it is you can do what I did, where you exit and you find a way to do this wacky thing that not everybody's figured out how to do, which is to live below your means and to have right.
It's so hard. It's so
Yeah,
hard, especially
yeah,
for the professionals that are listening. Like, you're making some good money and you already have a lifestyle. It's hard to say, well, I'm gonna go do that, just on
yeah.
a whim. But
Like you
if
could
you're younger and you're
afford
doing
this
it,
house, right?
yeah,
You can, right, with my wife and I both working dual income, no kids, we could afford this
yeah.
big of a house, but we bought this big of a house,
I did the same. Me and my wife were on the same. We were married for 10 years before we had any kids, dual income, no kids. And we bought like $116,000 house and we lived there. That was our first house. And,
yeah, man.
my sales guys that worked for me drove nicer cars, had bigger houses, but it was, this was what we did. Yeah.
That's what you got. And I think that if that it's a testament to how much you want it, um, and if you're not willing to really drop down your expectations a little bit,
Hmm.
to live life a little bit leaner so that you can live life as exactly as you want it later in life. And I'm not
Hmm.
talking like 30 years later. I'm talking like,
Like
5 years
5 years
later.
later, right?
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all you need. Um, and we didn't do this, but my wife would have been fine living in a multifamily, living in like a 2, 3, 4 family apartment building,
Yeah.
that we did like a house hack on or whatever. I highly recommend that too. If you want to reduce your expenses, live below your means, buy a
Hmm.
house hack. But we were able to live, couple thousand a month. And this is a while ago. This
Yeah.
is like 2005 when I quit, but our expenses were something like 3 or 4,000 a month when I quit my job. And so it didn't take much for her to earn to keep
Hmm.
our lights on. Now, we weren't flying to Italy. We weren't jet setting. We weren't doing all the fun
Yeah.
stuff, driving our dream cars. I was driving like an 8-year-old Isuzu. She was driving a 9-year-old minivan. We didn't have kids and she's driving around a minivan, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but so we did what we had to do in the beginning, and slowly as we started coming into some money, we were smart with it and everything like that.
Hmm.
And that's the exit path that we chose.
Yeah.
But I think that served us well,
Did
and
you
and
guys?
it allows us to be a lot more nimble
Yeah.
than having to make decisions based on keeping our expense nut met.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that?
No, it's okay. While we're on this topic, for you and your wife, was that like a written down goal? Was it a conversation? Was it many multiple? For the married couples, when we're thinking about how to talk with our spouse about working with each other. Hey, this is the way we're going to live today. but this is where we're going tomorrow. Did y'all, what was the, what was the
Eventually.
interaction like between you
Well,
guys?
eventually, but life is what happens while you're making other plans. I've also heard people say you make plans and God laughs.
Yeah.
Because it's just God's got other plans for you, all that. And unfortunately, there was a plan for a big old recession coming, the Great Depression, the Great Recession coming in 2008, right after I quit my job. And that kind of botched our plans, and our plans did that. We didn't have that in
Yeah.
our business plan. Nobody had global pandemic in their business
No
plan
one
this
knew
year.
about COVID, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, no, nobody underwrote for that. Like
Yeah.
I make that joke that nobody had global pandemic in their underwriting,
Hmm. Hmm.
not banks, not investors, not anybody. It's just kind of like, oh, hey, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at how that just changed things up. And so, yes, Liz and I had plans in 2005 and ideas for what we wanted when I quit my job, but we had to pivot because, the Great Recession, and as we've all had to pivot now.
Hmm.
So I think it's important to make plans, put them in, move yourself in that direction, and then be prepared to pivot when life when life gives you a curveball.
Yeah. Yep.
So
That's great. Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. Agree wholeheartedly. So, tell us about your, the walk, if you would, and not any one specific deal, but how many deals did you do a year really? Was it like 10, 20 to start, 30, 40, 50, and then you went to, well, I don't know what the numbers were like, and then I heard 8, 10, 20, and then maybe what you're doing today or like
It was a
closing
hockey
on this
stick.
last week,
It was
right?
a hockey stick thing like that. But we got started small. We did a lot of single family fix and flips, did a lot of onesie twosie deals in the beginning.
Hmm.
We also first year or two, I kind of chased my tail because real estate's exciting, man. And there's a lot of like, oh man, and I'm easily distractible. And so it's like, oh, hey, let's go look at a land deal. Great. All right, let's go look at an apartment building. Oh, great. Okay, let's go look at the single family home fix and flip. And so I found myself going in a lot of different directions the first year or two worth
Yeah.
of getting into the space and of doing this thing full time. And I found that I had a lot of fun, but I didn't get anything done.
Hmm.
And so I think that it's important to kind of pick a lane of traffic that you want to stay in real
Hmm.
estate. And as Brandon Turner has said, build that bridge. If you're standing here and financial freedom's over here, build a bridge to financial freedom, but only do it using one thing. Okay, I'm going to get there with single family home BRRRR strategy. Okay, do it over and 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 over. Okay, that worked, right? And then you can try buying a strip mall,
Sure.
or whatever. But we kind of got all over the place in the beginning. And we really hunkered down and focused at the Great Recession when that hit. We had some successes in small multi. We had a small apartment complex, like an 8-unit, 4 families together
Hmm.
that were an 8-unit. Then we bought one across the street that made it 12. That was one of our bigger assets, and that property did well. We had an office building that was doing well, and then that was kind of what we had at the time. And we noticed that we were good at residential landlording. My wife and I are both, love people, and we understand residential housing. So that
Yeah.
was kind of our niche we wanted to stay in. And so we started to build around that. And after the Great Recession hit, a lot more opportunities came out simultaneously. One or two investors started to show up and because they saw what we were doing and said, hey, we'd love to join you guys on this journey. We'd love to they said the magic words that I say in my book, Raising Private Capital. They said, I'd love to invest in real estate too, but I just don't have the time. And and that's anytime anybody listening to this show hears that, like that's like a little bell should go off, like a ding, because that's a great opportunity to convert someone into being a passive investor.
Yeah.
And so we did. And we picked up a few properties that had fallen out unfortunately, during the foreclosure crisis. 2 little single family homes. That was my first syndication deal. Two little row houses. And we fixed them up, renovated them, did the BRRRR strategy. And then we started doing that over and over again. And we slowly scaled from there, took those 2, and then we scaled it out and did a deal that involved like 5 properties. And then we took it out from there and raised another fund that involved like another handful of properties. And then we
Hmm.
went to a deal that involved 19 scattered site addresses, involved a 5-unit, a 4-family, and a 10,
Mhm.
right? A 10 unit. Then we went to bought an 18, and then we slowly scaled and scaled and scaled from there. And we just organically grew and kind of sort of had this term that every time we did a deal, it would double the size of our prior deal size,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So,
awesome.
okay. Yeah. You buy a 10. Okay. Do an 18. You buy an 18. And then we kind of followed that math. Bought the 18. Great. That worked. Let's go buy a 49, and then we kind of skipped a few. It's just sometimes opportunity knocks, right? So we skipped a few
Yeah.
rungs on the ladder and went from
Heck yeah.
49 to 198,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
and all that. So that was our path, and it was slow, organic. Buy it, get really uncomfortable, buy the property, figure it out. Get
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
uncomfortable, buy the next size property up, figure it out. And there's lessons at those sizes that I needed to learn as we scaled out and grew. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And
mhm.
and I know you're I believe you're partnered with a few of my good buddies now from the Kingdom REI, kind
Yeah.
of a Christian real estate mastermind, and you
Uh-huh.
guys have had some recent wins as well.
Birds of a feather,
Congratulations,
brother. Birds
man.
of a feather. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. No, we just bought, so that was our scaling process, but we eventually, and I mean, there, at some point, Abel, that math stops to work, right? Where it's like, okay, Matt, you just closed a 200 unit, Matt. So that means you got to
Yeah.
buy a 400 unit next. Well, you just bought a 400 unit. That means you got to go buy an 800 unit
Yeah.
apartment complex,
Yeah.
and all that. So, but I think at the beginning, the
Yeah.
concept of doubling your portfolio or doubling your
Yeah.
your biggest deal every time you do a deal, until maybe you get into the hundreds, is kind of a good space. But we just bought it. Yeah, we just bought a 336 unit complex in North Carolina. We're super lucky, super grateful to have it,
Mm-hmm.
and we're turning it around.
Yeah.
Because we focus on C class assets, and if you buy reasonable size C class properties that are in need of investment, they're going to be big turnaround properties. They're going to have issues. This one, North Carolina does, but it's very quickly turning around. And I've turned around a bunch of stuff like that before in my life, and
Yeah.
that from in different markets. So
Yeah.
nothing new than what I've seen before.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations, and I
Thank you.
love the model on the C value add, because you're at not the floor, but you're pretty close to it, where you can push your way up, and if I improve the property, improve the exterior, interior, help the community, improve my tenants' living situation, man, they're going to want to stay longer, they're going to pay more, you're going to attract better tenants, and you force the appreciation up, which is what we're all kind of looking for, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. Well, it's
great.
also, and it's not just C class for me is a lot of different things. Number one, it's a place for me to make the biggest difference. That I can
Yeah.
make a real impact in somebody's life. If I can take the person that can only afford to live in a C class asset, and give them niceties,
Yeah.
for a little more rent, not like double your rent, but
Sure.
if I can give them a playground, a dishwasher, and a feeling of safety and better lighting on their apartment building,
Man, that goes
and I
such a long
can
way.
get the knucklehead that's dealing drugs living next door to them out, then I can give them a better quality of life, and that meets my mantra of transforming lives through real estate. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, be straight from a business standpoint. We are not a not-for-profit. I do enjoy making money and all that, so we get a better deal on a 6C class piece of real estate than I do off of a B class that was built 10 years ago. I can get a better buy price. And so I'm able to create a better return for my investors on buying. And the pictures aren't as pretty, yeah. And the marketing material isn't as nice, and there's maybe not a pool, and there's maybe not big flowery apartment buildings or whatever. So I apologize to my investors that I can't send them pretty pictures just yet of these apartment
Yeah.
buildings we're
Yeah.
buying,
Yeah.
but I can promise you I'll make them nice. So but we buy, ugly ducklings that are in the path of progress, or that are in good areas or whatever.
Yeah.
And we renovate them, get rents up to market. We're not, most of our tenants tend to stay when we do these renovations and we do these improvements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then we create value for our investors there too.
Yeah.
So,
I love it.
and there's also, thirdly, there's a lot of competitors in B class real estate, B and A.
Mhm.
because it's perceived to be a good place to invest and make money. But honestly, those type of properties actually don't make money until they sell. The kind of stuff we buy makes money during ownership because we buy them affordably enough that we can cash flow them while we own them, which
Yeah.
is cash flow is this magical thing people don't have anymore. All of a sudden, it's like you only make money when you sell property. But bear in mind, you're supposed to buy real estate for cash flow while you own it, which if you buy D and C class real estate, you can create that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good. That's great insights and just an amazing opportunity for the people that live there because that's their home, and you're really helping them out, and along with investors have their goals, dreams, and desires, and you're helping multiple different people throughout the turn. So this is awesome. Well, so here's where I would really love to kind of dig in with you, right? Because I'm in about 800 doors, and I quote, you can't see the air quotes that I'm making here.
I saw the air quotes
for those listening, right? And those air quotes are because I'm passively invested 400 in 400 doors as a passive investor. So I put my money in syndication, somebody else's deal. The other half, I'm an active partner or general partner in some other bigger deals, right? So I'm a minority stake, in some other big deals. I'm kind of learning through the process, right? So when I was talking to Matt, I go, man, what I'm really trying to get to, my goals for 2021 is not so much a number of door goal. It's I want to be, more of that transition lead sponsor, main GP, lion's share kind of opportunity. And when we talked about that, I was saying I really am trying to create, exactly what he did in a different way, which is that's my bridge. How do I get to financial freedom? Let's make sure we set, our me and my wife, our family up for success. And Matt, said, hey, well, what size deals are you doing? I go, I'm looking for this 100+ unit, B or C property. And we started talking about.
I'm like you and about 300 other people,
you and everybody else in our space, right? And so that was the conversation. And I go, Matt, we need to have this conversation, just recording. And so set some people free. I know there are more people than just me that are having this, struggle with trying to find the right deal. We did find a smaller property that we're, God willing, closing pretty soon. But so we'll try not to talk about that one. It's a Reg D 506B. So we'll say. However, tell us a little bit about this process, this mindset about why sometimes for an individual trying to go for real estate.
As I understand Reg D stuff, by the way, you can talk about what you're buying. You just can't say, hey, by the way, you should invest with me or whatever. You can't do that and all that. So and everything. So you're allowed to pound your chest, just not as a solicitation to invest. Yeah. Anyway, my point to you was, and we found a lot of successes in buying small multi. And I'm saying small, like let's say small, let's define that. So somewhere between 10 and like 40, 50 doors, somewhere in there. Okay. Right. There is a really interesting niche in that space. And it is in some ways, here's the niche, right? Properties like that are too big for the smaller investors. The smaller investor probably thinks I'm sure they'd love to go buy a 10 unit, 20 unit, 30 unit, right? They might not have the wherewithal, the resources, and some of them the desire to get into something that's on the bigger side, right? To them. Additionally, a large investor is not going to go buying it because you cannot afford the on-site payroll for a 20, 30, 40 unit, right? That's why you don't see a leasing office. And somebody that's investing from out of state, that's a bigger investor, that's investing in markets and just kind of like looking to swoop in and bid out deals and things like that. They want to have on-site staff, or they want to, the biggest question they have is management. Cause like, hey, if I'm, up in Brooklyn, New York, or up in Manhattan, trying to, put my money to work, right? I can't go buy a deal in Amarillo, Texas. Even if I love that market, I can't buy it if it's a 40 unit because I can't put staff that I can put my finger on in that property, right?
Correct.
At a 150 unit, I can. At a 200 unit, I can. And guess what? If I'm a Manhattan guy, I'll pay more money because I can do hands-off management. I can put either my staff or third-party property manager staff, whatever, in that building to run it for me. And so if I can't do that, I'm out. I'm not touching it. And the magic number on payroll, I don't know why this is, but it's typically why I do, because we've run the numbers on it. It's typically around 80 units, is about where at least an on-site, like part-time leasing agent and maybe a full-time maintenance tech that lives in a unit.
Mhm.
About 80 is you can do it on the cheap to have on-site management. You really want to have it. The bigger guys won't even touch an 80 because that's not enough staff for them
Mhm. Mhm.
to implement their business plan and for them to be really hands-off. So if that's the case, then that just means there's less competition in the 10 to say 60, 70 unit space. And on top of that, there are super interesting buildings in that realm, right? We own a converted factory. It is such an awesome building out in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. It's an old factory. It's got spiral stair. And listen, I didn't do any of that. I didn't do any of that work.
Yeah.
I just bought it from the guy that did it. God bless him. He did a great job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a developer. I'm a landlord, right?
Yeah.
So it's got spiral staircases, it's got double high ceilings, it's got all this fun stuff. And something like that would be hard to create in the 80, 90, 100 unit space because just factories just weren't that big.
Sure.
You know, this is only like a 20, 30,000 square foot building, right? So there are interesting buildings that get overlooked in that middle realm. The thing is, you got to figure out, then have to figure out management. If the big guy doesn't want it for management, that should tip you off that management's going to be a little bit different.
Mhm.
So the biggest question you'll have on small real estate like that is, how am I going to run it? How am I going to collect rent? How am I going to handle maintenance? How am I going to, but if you can figure out that equation in the town that you're in, small multi is a great, it's a great kind of below the radar place to live. And although all real estate's gone up in value, because residential real estate, because thanks to the run up and the appreciation and everything like that, you can still find good deals and you're a testament to that. You know, you can still get good deals that make sense in the smaller space.
Yep. Hello. You're listening to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. And the ability to do the property management, like let's say you're local, which makes it much better. If I'm finding a deal in my backyard, it's sizable. How do you even start? Like with, let's say you've never really done property. Well, you've never done property management on a 20 unit, a 30 unit. You may, or for me, I'm talking about my perspective. I've seen the property managers, what they do on our 100 units, on our 200 units. I have no idea like how to actually say, okay, here's a 40 unit deal. Am I going to be, what do I do? I hire somebody part-time, or how does that work? Part-time individual?
Here's what I would do. I probably would hire a third-party property manager. That's what I would do. But I would find
pay
someone
them their 10%.
Yeah. Well, you can get them down a little bit for that size property. You should absolutely be able to talk them down to at least 8 because they're getting if you do the math on what revenue they're getting.
They're going
for
to
that. You say, hey, listen, I'm putting $2,000-3,000 a month in your pocket, right? Come on, let's have a conversation. So I would definitely try and get them down to 8 if you can. So at that size, I would only work with a property manager that has in-house maintenance. Smaller operations that do. These are like real estate brokers that just out of necessity got into property management. I would not work with them on this size asset. I've met with a bunch of them, and that's a lot of property managers are that the PM is like the redheaded stepchild of their company. It's like it's the necessary evil so that they can sell rental properties. They have in-house management, right? Do not work with that company. You can work with them on a single family duplex, triplex. They can handle that, right?
Sure.
But a property like this, I would either find a big outfit that manages a lot of bigger multi in your area, and they could take site staff, the leasing agent and maintenance tech that are working at a property around the corner, and do a bolt on to take your 40 units, 30 units, whatever, add that property to their management portfolio with that site staff and just kind of rev share, cost share staff, number one. Or work with a company that's a little more corporate. And the reason why I say they have to have in-house maintenance is the other alternative is that when a tenant calls with a maintenance issue, and they're going to call the property management company, hopefully through whatever hotline they have or 24-hour service, when they call that number, if the property manager has to go call, Joe or John, the handyman down the street, and have them come out, they're likely going to mark up that price. They're not going to be able to control Joe or John, the handyman, because Joe or John, the handyman, may have 7 other things to do that day and isn't going to put your property at highest priority. So you're getting marked up labor and you're not the priority.
Mm-hmm.
And at a bigger multifamily, you need to be priority, because you'll lose tenants and word will get out in your complex that it's hard to get work done. And my toilet's been, the woman whose toilet's been clogged for a week is going to tell her neighbors about that.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, it's not good. So you want in-house labor so they can control the response time to maintenance issues. It's one step away from the best case scenario, which is where you get a full-time employee whose job is to maintain that property, where he's working 40 hours a week and his sole job is to maintain your apartment building.
Yeah,
that's what you get when you get full-time staff. You can't afford, I don't think that the cash flow coming off a 30-40 unit is going to spin off enough cash flow to afford to pay that payroll, which is why you got to find a PM company that has somebody. Third option, find a local landlord that owns a 30 in town and say, hey, why don't we JV up together and share a maintenance guy and hire him full time? I'll pay half his salary, you pay half his salary, and we'll make sure that he splits around half his time between our properties. So, but maintenance is key on small multi like that. Yeah. Additionally, leasing, you can figure that out. So the leasing and collection side of it is something that's all part of it too. But more importantly is the maintenance.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so in your career, all the deals that you've done, how many of those mid-sized deals have you done in that space? Or maybe tell me your experience on that a little bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's see. I have a 10 and 18. I had an 18 that I sold. We have a 10 and we had a lot of 4 or 5 unit. We had about 115 units that I managed myself.
Those are the small in between, not 100, not 5.
A lot of that added up to 115 doors. And I did it with in-house staff. That's another way to do it, by the way. Is you could do it more enterprise level. You
grew your own company.
Yeah, just do it yourself. You want to do it right, No, I didn't do all the showings myself. Whatever, I have in the past, but I started to bring on staff that could do that. A 100-unit property management company. I mean, it can afford a few payroll. You're not going to make profit at that level for a PM company, but for that size PM company, we were able to make enough that I could pay staff to keep I had somebody keeping the books, and I had a property manager that went out and did showings and collected rents and coordinated. And I also had a maintenance tech that worked for me. Maintenance tech is interesting. That's actually a profit center. If you guys want to get into property management, you can charge, $45, $50 an hour for a great technician that's making $25 an hour, and make a yield spread off of the labor and all that, and even charge your own properties $45, $50 an hour. Because guess what? That's what you're going to get from on the street. So might as well charge market rate labor and then make it a profit center for yourself, and eventually manage for other people too, if you want, if you have a broker's license. So, not to get too complex, but that's what we did. And then I eventually found a property management company they were next level up from what I had built. They had around 600 doors and they were managing scattered site. I approached them and they really wanted this 49 unit to manage for me. And it was by far the largest property that they, would take down, but they also managed like 600-700 units in several counties around where they were. And I took a bet on them, but they had everything I said: in-house labor, a lot of in-house stuff, in-house systems, in-house processes. And I could see they were on a trajectory to grow. That company is now at 4,500 doors.
Yeah.
They were at 600 when I hired them.
Wow.
So
Yeah. Come at
yeah.
the right time. Well, that's good for you guys
Well,
to
yeah,
kind
and
of
I
work
saw
together
where they
and
were
partner
going.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, these guys are going the right way. I also asked them to invest in the property, and they did. So they
Oh, that
invested in my syndication in that 49 unit. So they own, I mean, this
so
small little
key.
stake.
Those things
Yeah.
that, that little or whatever the amount was, but that investment in the syndication was probably huge because you're like, hey man, they got some skin in the game.
It was
They're
worth 10.
absolutely
It
going
was
to
worth 10 times what
do
the
it.
check. It was worth 10 times the check. Let me tell you why. I went to them and I was like, hey, listen, you guys are owners now. And I see you guys own your own real estate too. My bet, here's a bet I have. I bet you that you're charging yourself a lower labor rate than what you're charging your customers. That's my bet. Am I right about that bet? And it's like, yeah, you're right. Okay. So I want to pay your labor rate
Yeah.
because we're owners, right? You're an owner too. So I got their rates on everything.
Nice.
Um, because they're an owner, and so why wouldn't they want to, you know what I'm saying? You align interest. So now it's not, the building was not necessarily a huge profit center for them.
Yeah.
The profit was on the cash flow that the property makes, right?
That's awesome.
So I
Yeah.
moved their profit line from property management markup to the bottom line to where I make money too. So I aligned goals with them, if that makes sense.
It
Not every
does.
PM is going to do it, and it also makes it very hard to fire them if you do that. So you got to be careful,
You better choose the right one because they're
better choose the
testy
right
at the
one,
end.
man.
Yeah.
Because I fired property managers that wanted to invest in the deal, and I was like, man, I'm super grateful I didn't
Yeah.
take that check for them investing because my spidey senses were tinkling. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I should take that check. Let's wait 6 months and see how it goes. And I had
Yeah.
to fire them.
Yeah,
So
yeah. All
yeah.
the things we work through. There's so many different ways,
Oh
and
boy.
to skit, to kind of do the deal. So many different
Yeah,
ways.
man.
But well, hey, man, it's been amazing. I might have one or two more questions. However,
Sure.
before we get there, where do our network, our investors, our people that want to get closer to your world, where do we reach out to you? How do we get in touch with you? And what's the best place to go to get more in your world?
Sure. My world is all about the DeRosa Group. So they can go to derosagroup.com, sitting behind me here,
Yeah.
www.derosagroup.com, derosagroup.com. Or you can pick up your handy dandy cell phone and text the word DeRosa, my company name, DeRosa, to 66866. And that will get you access to an enormous basket of resources that I put together.
Yes.
Presentations I've done at the Bigger Pockets live conference. You can get that. You can get a lot of stuff that I've written on COVID, a lot of videos that aren't available anywhere else. So that's just a basket of resources and a thank you. And you can also get links to join other communities that we have, including DeRosa Insiders. So
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. There's probably a ton of assets, a ton of things for me to learn,
yeah,
education, knowledge. There's no shortage. Now it's a matter of like taking action for us, right? We got to go
yeah,
do something.
they got to do it. They got to do it to it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, is there anything else we didn't talk about that you wanted to bring some exposure to, you wanted to highlight, anything you were hoping that I asked and I just didn't get around to?
No, I mean, no, I think we had a great conversation. I just think that there's a lot to know about this business. And so I think that it's important to always be learning and always be trying to kind of read the tea leaves on where things are going in the market and everything like that. So I think if you can do that and not figure like, okay, I've learned all I'm going to learn and I'm going to move on now, or but also not to be avoid the other side of it of paralysis by analysis and trying like, oh, okay, I'll make my first offer after I read the next 10 books, or I'll make my first offer after it's okay to learn on the job, and you're going to make mistakes and you're going to get battle scars.
Mhm.
And you're going to have all the bad things happen to you. But as long as you stay committed and have faith and keep moving, put one foot in front of the other, then you'll learn the lessons and you'll just keep moving
Yeah.
in that. So I think that it's okay to learn as you go and continue to learn all the time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, man, God bless you, brother,
You
for
too.
everything that you do, and thanks for the opportunity to just kind of sit and talk with you. And it's been amazing, and I appreciate it. And well, Matt, you're the man, the crazy big dog.
Yeah, I know. I might need a shirt that says that, crazy big dog. I love it.
Yeah, dude. Oh, well, thank you so much. Again, my name is
Thank you.
Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the Five Talents podcast. If you heard something today that provided you some value, it would be amazing if you went to our subscribe, rate, and review our show. And then also for Matt, he would love to figure out how to help you along your way, education, investing with him and his team, whatever the case, happy to do so. We do these shows to bring some exposure and obviously to help others. So we hope you take advantage of it and take some action. So thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Abel.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 Talents Podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who follow their dreams and achieve massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5 Talents Podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast.